Welcome, everybody. This is SharePoint Dev Weekly, episode 42. It is 3rd of June, so time flies, and summer is here. And it is already June, which is quite terrifying, actually. Luckily, the conference season from May is now done. Which was pretty brutal.
Because now it's June, so
Yes,
there is the
yes.
June conference season now.
No. At least not for me. So thank God, it's all done now. Until we will have our normal Scandinavian summer vacation. So.
Yeah, because you went to build SPCNA, ECS, yes. Which were kind of 3 weeks back to back, right?
Correct. That is correct. Yes.
Wow.
Well, to be fair, the Collab Summit was only from Sunday till Wednesday or Thursday morning, but still. So not the full week, but almost.
Yeah, well, I mean, you could have stayed the whole week, but you chose to, just do the event and then go back home to the most important things.
That is correct. Plus the fact
that
how was the last week was actually public holiday in Scandinavia.
So. Right. Well, the rest of Europe too, because there was also a holiday. It was a holiday
here. Not in Mediterranean area. So.
Well, I mean, they have a holiday like every afternoon. A siesta.
Yes. And there we go. Now we insulted everybody who's living in Mediterranean. Well, this goes.
No, I mean, like, why? It's just a different way of living. Like.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyways, how was ECS?
ECS was really good. ECS is, I like the mentality of the ECS. It's a no-profit conference. It's a community for the community, even though it's executed in highly professional manner. But it has this kind of a nice family feeling of having a chat with people and everybody is in a good mood. So rather than being, it's different when it is a normal commercial conference. So
okay,
which is good. So, but you don't actually, from a execution perspective and organization perspective, it is definitely executed as a professional conference. But I think that you can still feel the kind of a community for community feeling in rooms, even so, which is really good.
Cool. So then on Monday you were doing kind of 2 workshops next to each other. You were like one leg in one, the other in another, right? And then throughout the week you also had some talks, right?
So on Monday, we had 2 pre-days. So one was for getting started with SPFX. And I think that one had like 40 attendees, quite a small room. Unfortunately, there was no room for computers, so it wasn't really optimal from that perspective. No hands-on labs though, but still. The other room was Office 365, SharePoint. Deep dive power class or whatever, and it had 140 attendees. So that was the biggest pre-day in the Collab Summit. So
nice.
Which actually is an interesting difference, because then again, if you think about build 2 weeks, not build, SPC 1 week before, AC had, AC had a SPFX getting started, and I think he said that he had 120, 130 attendees in the room, and 90% of people raised their hand when he was asking that, hey, how many of you don't have any experience on SPFX?
Wow.
Ta-da! Which is interesting. But then,
so will it be geography difference or?
Yeah, it might be the case. I think it's geography, and also probably also the let's say the setup of the conference is different. Different people are getting sent to Las Vegas for the SPC SharePoint conference than the people who are coming to Collab Summit in Europe. So it's kind of, well, I don't want to actually draw a massive amount of conclusions out of it.
Sure.
But still. It's also good to see that there's plenty of people who haven't yet started with SPFX, even though the usage is out of this world. So that means that we can keep on growing as we are growing right now. So only sky is the limit. So, which is really good.
Yeah. So from that point of view, to what degree would you say that the audience you had at ECS, are they already in the cloud? They're going to the cloud, or is it still a fair group of folks who are on premises still and they're thinking about going to the cloud, or have no plans at all to go to the cloud and just going to stay on premises because reasons?
Well, it's such a regional thing, to be honest. And I think it's a regional thing actually in the US as well. So on a state level, like it is a country level in Europe. So Scandinavia, Finland, Sweden, Norway, everybody is already in cloud. There's no way for increasing cloud adoption because everybody is already in cloud.
Well, more companies move more companies to Nordics.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And Netherlands absolutely is already 100% in the cloud as well. Belgium following up. Then in France and UK are kind of a separate things, and then Germany is a separate thing as well. Germany has much more on-premises usage rather than cloud usage due to various reasons and historical reasons as well. So, but I think the interest is definitely there. And people want to use the latest and greatest, which is absolutely within the cloud. So there's a high interest. Again, they go there. That's a separate discussion. So yeah, I think there will be still marketplace for on-premises in future as well. We haven't. I don't think we announced anything in SPC, but I think there will be something in the future for on-premises as well, because we need to. Because if there's a market for it, and there's users for it, we need to keep on doing that. But obviously, all of the bets are put on the cloud. So
yeah, so there will be a market, not a marketplace, a market.
Yes. Different thing.
Just to keep things clear.
Yes. Just to be super clear. Vesa said again, no, don't do that.
No.
Wouldn't be the first time, by the way, but that's Vesa said, no, I didn't. How did? What?
Well, you kind of said it, but you didn't mean it.
Yeah, exactly. That's the difference between Finglish and English, right?
In English, you say things when you mean them, and then in Finglish, you say things which you don't mean. Is that what you're trying to say?
Something like that. Whatever it is.
No, yeah. Stop digging. Stop digging. Like at this point, no matter what you say, is gonna just make it worse.
Fine. Let's do it. Beep.
Yeah.
Out. Yeah, all good. What about you? How's it been for you? What have you been working on?
Yeah, so there's the one thing. I think we have a link to that.
Let's talk about that one. Yeah, that's pretty cool, actually.
So we have that thing about which
let's talk about it.
Which we're going to talk, and then other things. So for my work, I am not doing active dev. I'm planning product, planning roadmaps, doing research regarding what the customers with going to the cloud or using things like flows, power apps. So we try to understand that, and that's my job to plan product around that and see like, okay, so how could we help them alleviate these pain points and help them move to the cloud or increase adoption, decrease the issues and risks and so forth and so on. Yeah. So basically for my work, I am doing that. So basically going through release cycles, planning cycles, strategy planning, and so forth and so on. Other than that, from the community side, we're working still on CLI V2. So the V2 will have two big things. We're going to simplify auth and align command names, because over the year and a half that CLI now exists, we picked up some things that if you put the command names next to each other, like some names do not match each other. It's like kind of weird that it's the same thing, but then just they don't really match, or either the argument names, command names. So we're going to align that. So that will be the version 2 where we will break things because we will rename commands.
Yep, but it's a major version, so it's allowed.
Exactly. So that is like, we don't want to take it lightly, but we say like, okay, we want to simplify how things work. So yes, we will break things, and version 1, we will not do any development on V1 when the version 2 is shipped. So we will just move to V2, and from that point on, if you want the latest features, commands, and so on, you will need to switch. But that's just like one point in time change, and then we hope that they'll be the only one, at least for the next year, maybe 2, maybe more, right? So we're not planning any major version anytime soon, because why? Like so far we had 21 minor versions, which are just building up one on top of another, and then we add commands, add arguments, evolve the commands that we have. So that's going fine. So that is what I've been doing recently.
Adding arguments is always a good thing, because that doesn't break any of the existing strings or implementations.
Exactly.
So it's an easy way of extending capabilities. So.
Yeah, and then 2 cool things that we released just yesterday in a beta are 2 improvements for upgrading your SPFX projects from one version to another, which you can do in CLI. So one, we added the idea of that one So when we analyze a project, you want to go from version 1 to 2.
Yeah.
We have a set of things for which we check, and then we say, okay, so you have to change this, and that. And at some point, we found that, for example, if you want to go from version 1.4 to 1.8, there are quite a few things that changed. And at some point, we found that we're giving you advice to update something, and then in 1.7 there is delete of the whole thing. So there's no need for you to do that. So now we added the idea that we can supersede findings, so that one thing can deprecate all other things. Exactly.
Makes sense.
So basically, to optimize the amount of steps you have to go through. So that is one, and two is we added the support for package managers. So originally we would only give you the commands to update using npm, but some people use yarn, some people use pnpm. So now we added that option too, that you can say, okay, give me update steps, and by the way, I use pnpm. And then you will get all commands names for like how to upgrade packages using pnpm or yarn or npm. So these are the two things that we already shipped. These are already available in beta, and probably when there will be the next update of SPFX, you will be able to benefit of that already.
Cool. Really cool.
Yeah.
Really cool. Everything is progressing. That's what it is.
Slowly, yes.
One step at a time to the right direction. That's the story of my life, at least. So
yeah,
and then the direction moves all the time. But as long as you keep on moving, everything is fine. Now let me share my screen.
Basically, being a shark, right? You cannot stand still. You have to keep moving.
Something like that. Yeah. And anyway, it would get boring if you would be standing still. So actually, related on that one, I have to say before we go to the actual articles, you can probably see my screen, right?
Yes, I can. Yes.
So I can't wait to get back on new stuff, because there's some really cool stuff what we're planning to do now that the SPC and everything else is done. Now, first clear in the backlog.
Area? Which area?
I cannot disclose anything. Just a teaser.
Okay. Will it be something related to dev?
Yes, maybe.
Woohoo! Maybe.
Okay, let's go.
Some say yes.
Some say. The dev is such an abstract topic. Other multiple things can relate on a dev. Now, okay, so let's actually jump in here. This morning, we released the May 2019 version of Season, which is actually kind of awkward. I released that in June 3rd. Hey, but things do happen. Typically, we'll release the latest version of Season always on the last Friday of every single month. But to be honest, I was off last Friday, and because I'm responsible of doing this, so I basically didn't do that. So because
why don't you release it ahead of date, like they've done on premises with?
Oh, you mean the time when I was in Collab Summit? Or...
No. So why isn't this a release for June?
Sure. It could have been released for June as well. It doesn't matter. We have basically done always the monthly release for the past 4 years now on the last Friday of every single month for that month. So again,
so it's over past month. Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter. Anyway, the build is actually from the mid-month, so that the server-side bits has been rolled out to the server-side worldwide. So it's kind of the May release, because the bits are anyway from the mid-May. So regardless if it's going out, again, debatable. But a few things maybe here. There was a few pointers which are actually showing where we're heading. So first of all, organization asset libraries are getting some adjustments. We talked about this one in SPC. Footer layout type, we talked about that in SPC as well. So there's multiple options coming for footer. So the simple and the more bigger footer for the content footer. So that's there as well. And then there was a few items in the tenant side or tenant API side, like get site script from a site is now a method in the tenant object, which obviously is, you can call that using SharePoint Online PowerShell as well. There was actually a few things which might be interesting for you as well, which were related on the third-party API permission grants, but these are in the internal namespace. So I need to double check now. These are actually coming from my team, so I know the engineer who's actually working on this. So we'll double check what's the situation on using these things.
But basically, what it means. What is the difference between this one and the existing grants?
I'll get back to you on that one. So
Okay.
Anyway, might be interesting for CLI. We'll double check
Yeah.
that one.
Perfect.
And then for the 3 different new PowerShell commandlets, that's the one which we demonstrated actually in last week's community call as well. So get the SPO side scripts from a web. So executing that, and I get the JSON based on the web description. It is not as powerful as the PMP exporting, importing, the PMP tenant templating, exporting, importing. But hey, getting there one step at a time, and you get the JSON plop for site script. Site scripts are for extending out-of-the-box capability, out-of-the-box site provisioning experience, and then the PMP one is more tenant level and a more wider capability behind it.
Do you know if that will distinguish between what is available out of the box with the site and what has been added on top, or will it just extract everything, like all lists, all
it does recognize what has been added as a out of the box.
Nice.
So that's good. So
that is cool.
If you, good. Office Developer Community Newsletter, May 2019. This came out last Friday because it's Monday now. Yeah. And basically everybody who has subscribed for the Office 365 developer program got this one in email as well. It has the upcoming events. One of the things maybe to mention in the upcoming events is that it does not actually have the weekly SharePoint community calls because we would have way too many SharePoint items on the list. So it only have the monthly calls listed in here.
Which is perfectly fine.
Which is fine, which is absolutely fine. And then we basically, Charmaine, who actually sends this, is then collecting all of the different news and all of the different things, what has happened within the cross different services to a single email, and then you can find what is happening. So this one is for episode 37, which is actually quite old. So their transition date is quite old, actually, apparently. Wow, actually, it is really old because this is the last community call is from 25th of April, and this came out on the 13th of May.
Yeah.
So it's 1 month older stuff which is getting shipped on the email, but that's fine as well. Typically, people don't follow up on this thing on a day-to-day basis. There are exceptions on that, but it's.
Yeah, I think that anyway, it's good to have in one place overview of whole links across the whole service.
Absolutely.
And not to have to keep track of SharePoint and Teams and other things all over the place. So this is just one place for devs to get, and you get that directly in inbox. So that's also there is the value in that too.
Yep, and this one also had the list of all of the contributors in the community calls across all of the Microsoft 365 developer events or the community calls as well. So it's kind of this one was not started after the PMP, the SharePoint PMP monthly summaries and all of that. So it's a slightly more wider under the whole Microsoft 365 dev umbrella, and we're still adjusting what is the content in here and how do we do that. So anyway,
cool.
Moving on things, SharePoint roadmap May 2019 from Mark Cashman. Intra-zone roadmap discussion, but if we scroll down, we can actually see a lot of cool stuff which is getting mentioned here. So Microsoft Stream adds quizzes and polls to the video playback, so we're able to actually see those. In-care graphic storage for Yammer messages. This is actually pretty cool. So this used to be a massive deal for Yammer adoption, right? I'm not going to allow my company or organization to adapt Yammer because Yammer messages are stored in the US. That's no longer the case after this announcement. So basically, there's now that's the Western
Ireland.
That's Northern. That's Ireland, obviously. Amsterdam, Paris. That's Switzerland, Austria, Switzerland, Germany.
Yeah.
And then there's the Helsinki data center, and not Helsinki, but Finland data center anyway as well. So everything is in EU. EU, we'll see what's the adoption pump on that one. Microsoft Search is coming now. G8 announcement was in build 2019, and it is getting elevated, so to say, on the suite navigation level, which by the way makes perfect sense because it's no longer inside of SharePoint. It is actually Microsoft Search. It's not a SharePoint search. It was at some point. Really cool stuff. Fulfill the SharePoint libraries in OneDrive. So this is basically also having the new graphic UI. What is Fluid framework, right?
Yes. Well, it's not Fluid framework. It's
Fluent.
Fluent UI. Yes.
Fluent
Yeah,
UI,
because there's
that's
Fluent, Fluid.
Fluid
And...
is different. Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Cool. Sharing links that block downloads for Office files. So block download option for sending a link. That's actually really cool as well. That's actually really, really useful. So you want to send a link to the file, but you want to make sure that they are unable to download the file from the SharePoint or OneDrive. Really useful stuff.
Yeah.
Column formatting, chart like data bars, number columns. So these are getting evolved. So really good. New capabilities.
Yeah, because originally we had to address that with CSS. So we basically had to add div and a div and then max value divide by, and then we had to basically draw the bar ourselves. So now it's available out of the box already.
Yep, it is evolving nicely.
Yeah,
it's still missing the really cool, let's say, editor and where you can drag and drop in different options. But I think we'll get there at some point.
One step at a time.
Chris Kent is building a open source community editor for these things as well. So. Which is partly ready and partly usable already. Planner to-do integration, that's really cool. What else do we have? Notification about your Planner task assignments in Microsoft Teams, cool. SharePoint Admin Center improvements. So you can actually access the classic features directly from the modern UI. It's really good. So you don't have to go to the classic UI and then from there you can actually find them. Also, the implementation of for example, the user profiles has not evolved. It's still the pretty rough experience if you go there, and I don't think we're going to actually invest on modernizing those. I'm not sure if that's a worthwhile of the investment, to be honest.
Well, on the other hand, I mean, we talked about it a few times in the past already. Give us the APIs, give us the option to extend this experience, and vendors or partners will build these experiences. Absolutely. Yes. Or maybe even community. And there will be an open source package that you can install, and you will have a modern experience around around taxonomy, profiles, whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
So give us the APIs.
Give us the APIs.
And hooks.
Hooks. Good. Anyway, really good resource and update on the timelines. And there will be another one, obviously, in next month to list the things in Mark Cashman's area. So these are slightly problematic maybe because they always pinpoint to a specific area. And then there's another one from a different marketing person to a separate area. And it's slightly bigger because they own a separate area of things. And that's where it actually comes from. So as an example, Brad McCabe owns the modern portals and modern experiences. So that's why he's responsible again on communicating on the SharePoint home sites, as an example, which is one of the new announcements from SBC. This one is actually from 21st of May, but we haven't actually covered this. And I think it's worthwhile to have a look.
Yeah.
And really nice looking gear and computer, by the way, as well.
Is that a Mac?
No, it's not a Mac.
Well, it is an iPhone next to it, so.
It is an iPhone, but that's Surface. That's still a Surface.
Yeah, I know.
So home sites are a new thing which we announced in SBC, and that's really the landing page of your company or your corporation. And when we start, there's going to be one home site per tenant, and we're looking into potentially having them multiple at certain time frame. Because if you have a different divisional landing pages based on your organization where you belong to, it makes sense to have that one as well. But,
and then you can still have a corporate one, right? So you will have one for everybody, and then divisional. Yeah.
Exactly. And then the home sites are kind of it's I think it was Dan Holm who said it's a communication sites in steroids, because basically any communication sites can be configured to be the home site, and after that changes the behavior of that communication site. And so you have more aggregation capabilities, you have more web parse capabilities, settings and options which are more flexible, because that's the official landing page, so to say. And if you scroll down all the way here, that's DC from he's a senior program manager from the feature crew. Also providing a really nice frequently asked questions list here. So what is a home site? How do I get one? What is special about the home sites?
It's really cool.
Yeah. And for a lot of this stuff, I think it was mentioned in the context in here actually, where is it? It's not. This is a Wisdom home site design, but we had quite a few actually partners involved in the preview program, and we're still working on those partners, making sure that their extensibility works really well in the home sites as well. So if you're using intranet in a box, or if you are an intranet in a box provider, you can actually integrate really well on the home site experience. It's not intended to eat away your business, not at all. It's basically a logical ask from all of the customers out there. But then we also have a preview program where ISVs and system integrators be part of, and they get early access on things, and they can adjust their extensibility on top of the design in here, which is really cool. Good. Then we get to your baby, right?
Yes. Well, yeah, baby.
And this one was really cool. You did this last week. Do you want to talk about, or do a quick intro? What is it?
Yeah, so for a year and a half now, we have the idea, we have CLI, right? And it allows you to manage your tenant as well as upgrade your SPFX projects. And basically, since we released it, I always looked up to the Azure shell, like the shell that you can open when you go to Azure, the portal. In browser, you can open a shell, which is either Bash or PowerShell, and you can run this CLI or command list directly in browser. So you don't need to install anything. You can run it directly from there. I was like, okay, so that is cool, but that is only for Azure. What if we had exactly the same experience for 365?
Yeah.
So you can manage your tenant directly in browser without the need to having to install anything.
Yep.
And time passed by, but it's like the idea was all the time on the back of my head, like, how would we go around doing that? And then last week I had some spare time because I wasn't doing other things. So I was like, you know what? I want to give it a shot. I want to take a stab at it, and here it is. So I managed to pull it off in a way that I have container running on ACI in Azure, container instances in Azure that run CLI, and then I have an SPFX web part that sits on a page and opens a socket connection to container, and then basically you can type commands directly in browser, and these commands.
Just asking there, you are signing in using the same way as you would be signing in when you're running the command line in your computer, right? So
yes,
it's not automatically signing in yet.
Yes. So currently we don't pass a token from a client.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure if there is one available, but we could, in theory, we could get it, but I'm not sure that if there's one available for. So there are multiple ways around it. So we could maybe try to get it directly for our CLI, because CLI obviously is an admin level tool. So it has many permissions across the whole 365 because it's meant to help you to manage service. So it has access to AAD, it has full control of your sites and so forth and so on, right? So it's a powerful thing.
Yeah.
And we actually could do it in a way that we get the token, we pass it to CLI so that you don't need to authenticate. Currently, we don't do that. So currently, you will still need to authenticate inside CLI itself, but it's basically the same way as if you would do it, as if you would run it on the laptop.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. But now you don't need to install anything on a laptop.
Exactly.
Execute it. And this is. You might think that this would be useful to have in everything in the tenant admin UI.
Yes.
It's kind of a click and boom. If you're more familiar with writing commandlets or command line operations, boom, you can actually do that rather than click, which is much more time consuming. So.
Yeah, and actually the cool thing is that most people might not click initially, but there are two parts to it, right? There's container that runs CLI, and then there is the web part, which you see here on a page. If you replace container that runs CLI with one that runs PowerShell, you could have the same experience with
the PowerShell,
PowerShell directly in browser, right? So you could maybe do it even in a way that you would allow uploading scripts that you already have, because in the end, container runs whatever you give it to. So if you would have something like access to storage or share somewhere and you would upload them there, well, you would be able to automate all of that, right? So if you have a script that you want to run, right? So you could do exactly the same experience, but then on PowerShell. So in the end, you would have the parity with what you get in Azure, the Azure shell.
Yep, absolutely. Let me add some notes on my paper to.
Yes.
No, but
change the background to blue.
Fair point. Yes, there's always the what was it? It's the manager level feedback, right? Otherwise, I like this, but I don't like the color. So can we adjust? Can we just adjust that? Yes, we can adjust it. Okay. So can you do that right away? No. Let's concentrate on the fact that it's cool. No. Not on the colors. Come on. But yeah, so this is really cool, and I think it would be highly beneficial to think about the model even for us in to providing an administrative experience for tenants using the SharePoint Online PowerShell or whatever PowerShell at some point, which will then, or CLI in the
both.
Oh, both, absolutely.
Right, because there are people who like one, there are people who like another. Like, why not have it the same way? As you have it in Azure, where you have both. It's up to you to pick whatever you want to use.
Yep, absolutely. Offer the options for the end users, the administrators. So absolutely, really cool stuff. Really cool stuff. Good, and this is open sourced. You have the whole thing available here. You have the Docker file available, SPFX available, and you even have the setup clarified here. What do you need to do to actually run the thing and test things? So really cool stuff. So, and built with SharePoint Framework. The UI,
of course.
So,
and actually, the cool thing is that you could even expose that in Teams, right? Because currently you can expose web parts as Teams tabs. So if you live in Teams, well, you can have the same experience there.
You could have a Teams PowerShell running in the Docker, and then you would operate against the Teams admin. So absolutely.
And then you could even go to the point where in Teams you can write a bot with whom you will chat, and that bot will then relay commands to this.
Yeah, that is true. Done. Cool. Moving on some community articles, really cool stuff. And we'll obviously, you can find the links in the blog posts related on things, and people are able to download and test it out. And please provide us feedback. Is that something which you should be looking into in the admin UIs as well? I have some connections.
User voice, upvote on user voice.
I have some connections on the right levels. Cool. Let's talk about the other stuff as well. So Gautam, who was actually in SPC, at least, yes, he was in SPC, who wrote this really nice short article related on applying out-of-the-box modern themes using PnP, CSAM, and PowerShell, kind of clarification and which version and all of that, and how do you apply an out-of-the-box PowerShell. Using that, and it is in here. It is basically as simple as then running the apply theme using the theme manager, which is really easy. By default, this is actually isn't as easy as it is, because there's no easy way of applying the default theme.
No.
It is much more complicated. There's actually some thinking behind of this and the implementation behind of the apply theme. There is no just apply a blue theme on a site.
Because you have to paste the palette. There is no enumeration server side.
That is correct.
Yeah. Because we went through exactly the same thing in CLI.
Yeah, which is weird, but hey, that API is what it is. So, and good that Gautam is also explaining how to apply the orange, because that is my favorite color. So
yes.
Yeah. So, the orange phones and the car is getting selected based on if you can get it in orange, which, by the way, is minimizing the spectrum of cars which you can buy.
Well, I think you could get a Lamborghini in orange. There's the Ford Focus ST. I think it's also in orange. So there are quite a few options still.
That's true.
And still, you always have wraps.
Yes, we get to wrap it anyway. Cool. Moving on topic. So generating a modern list, filter URL, manage metadata from Pius K. Singh. But this is really around the fact that how if you filter based on a metadata, what is the URL, which actually is then pointing to the metadata field, so that the list rendering is actually filtering the results based on that. And then he's explaining how to use that structure and how to build that in a way that you're able to, for example, have a full set of left side navigation items, which are actually pointing to the same list, but then they're filtering on the right metadata field. So really cool setup. Also, how you're then pinpointing to the right view in the list. So it's all about URL management, which theoretically might be actually a risk. And we're going to talk about that one in the following tab as well, because the URL itself, unless it's documented, we might actually change that.
Because it's not an API, right?
Because it's not an API. And if it's documented, then it's basically a contract. It's an agreement between the people who are consuming that and how we are building stuff. But if it's not documented, it's not an API, and that might cause you a problem. So you never know.
So in other words, if you want to help the world being SharePoint Office 365 Dev, stop building things, start writing docs, because the more things we get in docs, the more things we get supported.
But the fact that you're submitting a doc doesn't mean that the doc is
I know.
True. So,
but then we can upload, like, and then you're like, but we cannot kill PR with so many likes.
Fair point. But that kind of relates on the discussion with Bob German's blog post as well, deep linking to a SharePoint Framework tab in Microsoft Teams. And this is, if I scroll down, let me actually show what it is. Basically, how do you open up Microsoft Teams in the web browser in this case, which is then open up in the right tab. So you basically land on this location, which makes perfect sense as a requirement. Now, the challenge of doing this is actually also the fact that we're building a complex URL. And we're pointing there. And again, unless I'm completely mistaken, this URL structure has not been documented, and it has not been exposed as a API or reusable API structure. Now, it might be the only way to make this happen, but it's really important to be aware that there might be changes unless, again, it has been documented and we have publicly said that it's fine to use the structure and the URL structure, and we guarantee that will work. So
I think for the list views, we had, like, years back, we had an article on MSDN.
I think we did. Yeah, that's true. That's true. MSDN doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So problem solved.
Yeah, I think it might be. Well, let's speculate. We can have a look on that one after the recording.
If you find a reference to it in the Internet Archive, you're good.
Yeah,
it's supported.
That's fine. The next one was from Paolo. He is really releasing one of these in every single week, which is really great. And I think I like the fact that many of these are kind of a getting started level and pinpointing a scenario, and there's not super long. So really provisioning tabs, Teams tabs built with SharePoint Framework, and how do you provision those? How do you actually make them available in the Teams side? So what are the options? And you can use the sync with Teams button, or if you package the manifest by yourself, that's an option as well. So really walking through that one throughout here and showing how you actually build the structures and package zip files and get them deployed. So really cool stuff. And then as a final piece, this one was from John Client. Interesting discussion point, which is around the fact that metadata pros and cons in the modern SharePoint. So should we use folders or metadata? And what is the best and right thing to do? And well, there's no right or wrong things to do. Everything depends, obviously. And metadata absolutely helps on finding the things, but then what are the cons? What are the pros and folder cons? And what are the pros? And like John is saying here, what is better? Well, it depends. Quite a few decision-making factors, but it's really important that people make these decisions knowingly the impact of that decision, right?
Yes.
Rather than accidentally. I read an article in Twitter, in internet, which says that metadata is better. Okay, but based on who? Based on what? Who made that decision?
Exactly. And then is it good for, because in the end, like I can say, okay, this is the way I work, but what I do might not be per se the best thing for a company as a whole.
Absolutely.
right? So yeah, there is always that edge to things as well, like your personal preference as opposite to what is the best for us as a group.
Yeah, and there might be whatever company the people are representing, they might have some other impactful, let's say, characteristics, variables or environmental things, which changes the whole discussion. The fact that you find an article in the internet doesn't mean that it's true. So everything what's written down doesn't mean that it's actually true, right?
So in other words, in the end, everything comes with a price, and then luckily we have the Microsoft search. So now you will find things anyway.
Anyway.
Yes, and starting from today, we'll have a dear colleague, ex-colleague of ours, your colleague, colleague, Mikael, working on the UX aspect of the Microsoft search. So hopefully we'll see more and more work in that area being done. So we will find things even more easily, no matter what. Let me
elaborate on that quickly, but just to clarify that people are getting what we're talking here. So Mikael was actually a visitor, I think 3 weeks ago in here in the SAP Dev Weekly, and on that SAP Dev Weekly he announced that he's joining Microsoft. Also we talked about that one for it's a longer journey. It didn't happen I'm joining Microsoft. No, that's not how it actually works, unfortunately. But he is now joining Microsoft, the Oslo team, Microsoft Search team, and his responsibility is the UI extensibility in Microsoft Search, which is really cool. There was a quite interesting early discussions in SBC timeframe, what we might be doing there and what we might not do there. It might relate on many of the discussions which we are obviously having quite openly in this SAP Dev Weekly as well. So we'll see how it goes. Whenever there's anything we can talk about, that information will be coming out as a blog post, and then we're going to talk about it absolutely in the SAP Dev Weekly.
But now there is also this interesting aspect to it, right? Because Mikael was really spent quite some time building the open source search web part, search experience on top of SPFX, and now he's working for Microsoft. So will that collide? Will one be abandoned and the other one will be removed? Will it be sucked into it? Will he use it as proving grounds for things or not? Like all kinds of.
We'll see.
Exactly. But that is interesting. There's like, how will that work?
Yeah, that's really cool. That's good. But I think that's it for this one. Now, finally, resting. I have 4 weeks and then my summer vacation, Scandinavian summer vacation starts, which is 4 weeks. Woohoo! And at this point, somebody says in some area, quite typically US people are always saying that you Europeans have so much vacation time. And the answer is, well, this is the only vacation time I'm actually having. So there's no Fridays off, there's no Mondays off, so it's different. We're just always bundling that as one bigger vacation. So.
Okay.
Whatever that means. Anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway,
on that
bombshell, we will be releasing a next one on a week from now, because now there's surprise. There's no actual conferences. You're not traveling, right, either?
No, I have next travel planned to Munich at the end of the month, but other than that, I'm recovering.
So that's good. Yeah, that's good. Excellent. But I think that's it. So we'll come up with a new one in a week. We'll try to figure out who's the visitor on that one.
Yeah, because now that everybody else had a week to recover too,
yes,
they finally might some time and room to join us.
Absolutely. But anyway, thanks for your feedback. Keep the feedback coming. If you have suggestions what we should be going through, let us know. Hashtag SAP Dev Weekly for leading your articles, and let us know that your article exists, as we're able to cover that in the weekly calls. But thank you very much. Stay tuned. Bye-bye.
Bye.